Welcome to Liberate Your People Pleaser. I am your host, Brenda Florida, certified life coach, and you might be a people pleaser if you sacrifice your needs or your wants or your feelings to benefit someone else, or you keep silent when something bothers you or upsets you, or you're super critical and feel like you're probably your own worst enemy. Well, here's what I've got in store for you for this podcast. First of all, there's nothing wrong with you and you don't need fixing. What we need to do is leverage the superpowers of being a people pleaser, because there are definite superpowers. You are super intuitive, I am sure. You have great powers of empathy, the ability to read a situation and know what's going on with people and those around you. So what we're going to do in each episode is talk about ways to disempower the parts of it that are diminishing and don't serve us anymore, and level up or empower all those superpowers. So join me in the next episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. Welcome everyone to this episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. I am super excited to have my friend and happiness expert, Kim Strobel, with me. So this is going to be a really special episode because Kim has some really awesome and very specific expertise and research and all kinds of fun things she's going to share with us about creating more happiness and more joy in your life. So before I let Kim start to tell us her story and why she even speaks and coaches on this topic, I'll read you a little bit about who she is. So Kim is for the joy seekers. I love that. That's why we're friends. The go-getters and the real messy women who want so much more from their lives. Can I hear an amen, right? As a nationally recognized speaker and happiness coach, Kim is all about empowering others to live bigger, bolder, braver lives. When she's not rescuing dogs or downing a McDonald's Diet Coke, Kim's contagious high energy style has the unique ability to embolden her audience. Motivational, inspirational, and always approachable, Kim's real talk attitude is a refreshing approach to that authentically connects with hearts and humans everywhere. So many words in your bio I could just go off on, right? Because that authenticity and the whole being real, right? Like everything about Liberate Your People Pleaser is about taking these maybe big ideas and lofty concepts like even happiness and joy, right, and making it practical. Like, okay, great, good idea, now how the F do I do this in my daily life? So Kim, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what brought you to where you are.
Well, I am thinking as you read that bio, I could really rewrite that and be like, Kim wears no makeup 99% of the time and a headband in her hair and loves her Lululemons. And the only reason she put a little bit of lipstick on today is because Brenda said this is a video. Yeah.
We're keeping it real. We're keeping it real.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that that's the theme of your podcast, because I think that maybe the hardest work for the woman her entire life is how do we show up as our real selves when we feel so lost from who we really are? That's like the constant discovery, isn't it, Brenda? Like who am I? Who am I outside of all of my roles and everything that society has told me to be? Who am I if I can peel back the layers and see? And we don't, this is a lifetime worth of work. You know this. We're constantly doing this. We're constantly reaching for the deeper parts of ourselves.
Absolutely.
But we know that is like a must, right? That when we can connect more with our authenticity is when our heart begins to sing. And so for me, I always have to clarify, I walk on stages all across the country and I'm introduced as the happiness coach. And I'm in my beautiful fuchsia dress and my 3-inch heels. And I always have to just back the bus up because I believe in being real. I'm like, here's the deal. I'm not sunshine, unicorns, and glitter all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do have a contagious energy and enthusiasm for life. I do, Brenda. But my becoming a happiness coach it was really born out of my own darkness. And
Mhm.
I can tell you that story if that's where you want to go.
Yeah.
But I was really in extreme darkness for a big part of my life. And so if we go all the way back to my childhood, I look back and I can see that even though I functioned extremely well from the outside looking in, I
Yeah.
played sports and, I all of these things. I was a nervous little girl. And so I can take this all the way back to when I was in 5th grade. And I remember when my mom and dad wanted to take us to Disney World as a family. And I like literally told my mom and dad I wasn't going to go. I was afraid my brothers would get lost or stolen or kidnapped.
Huh.
The only way I would go is if we could tie one of those leashes onto my wrist, not my mom and dad's wrist, but like my wrist and the other end to my brother's wrist. And so my mom was like,
Interesting.
okay, like, we might need to get her some counseling. There's so yeah, right. Like what 5th grader's not jumping up and down wanting to go to Disney World?
Yes. Yes.
Um, but to just kind of fast forward that,
Yeah.
I in junior high, it turned into if my dad wasn't home by 6 o'clock p.m., I was in the bathroom feeling sick, shaking all over, convinced that he had died in a car accident. And
Mm.
so the pivotal moment really became my sophomore year of high school. I'm kind of, I'm out of that like ugly middle school stage. I'm feeling better about myself. I was a great athlete. I got lots of recognition. I was feeling more confident about myself. And then I started having these out of the blue, very intense episodes where I would be sitting in a classroom or walking down a hall or driving my car to school. And it felt like within a second, but now I know, according to the brain research, that a panic attack can actually happen in 1/14th of a second.
Wow.
That's how quickly your amygdala fires. And
Yeah.
so this was probably like 1989, and I'd be sitting in a classroom, and within a second, I would be on the verge of like extreme terror. And so what that would feel like is all of a sudden I was confused. I knew my name was Kim Sabelhouse, but I didn't know why. I knew I was in a classroom, but it looked unfamiliar. The walls were closing in. I felt like I was on the brink of just like passing out. I felt feelings of unreality, extreme nervousness, like I need to flee, I need to get out of here, like literally my life is on the line. And
Yeah.
so what happened is that started a period of about 10 years where um I was a full-blown panic disorder, but we didn't have a name for it, so nobody knew what was wrong with me.
Right.
And I became agoraphobic. So like I struggled to leave the house. I quit college. I couldn't
Okay.
drive my car 5 minutes to Walmart. I'm 20 years old, and to be honest with you, I felt like 2-year-olds were functioning better than me. Brenda, 2-year-olds
Yeah.
could go to Walmart and
Yeah.
they could like happily go around the aisle away from their mommy, and I'm a 20-year-old woman or 21, 22 who goes to Walmart only if her husband's with her, and then he's not allowed to get out of sight.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Wow.
So, yeah,
Wow.
there's a lot
Yeah.
to like break apart there because, I always tell people, because even your listeners,
Yeah.
some of them don't have panic disorder, but let's be honest, all of us have had some really shitty traumatic things that have
Yes.
happened to us
Yes.
that have completely derailed our lives and made us feel, I felt less than, I felt flawed, I felt inadequate. I hated these limitations I had. And not only that, Brenda, I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I just thought I was crazy because we didn't know about anxiety disorders back then. That was like not something that,
Yes.
like when I
Yeah.
went to the doctor, it was like, oh, she has low blood sugar. Oh, we think she has a seizure disorder. It wasn't until I was like 24 years old that I finally got a diagnosis. And this is panic disorder with agoraphobia. And so for me, it really came down to, there was 10 years there where honestly, Brenda, every part of my day was a struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
getting in my car and driving the 5 minutes to work was a struggle.
Yeah.
When everybody left for lunch and I was by myself in the office, that was a struggle. When I walked around my block or walked to my mailbox, that was a struggle. But guess what? Hardly anyone knew because I was
Well,
so
that was going to
ashamed.
be my question. So I'm super curious from the outside looking in, were you still putting on some sort of, masked smile and, air
Absolutely.
quotes happiness, so that other people didn't realize what was going on?
Yes. My
Yeah.
husband knew I had some kind of issue where, because I would
Mhm.
call him and I'd be scared or nervous, but no one else knew because, like, nobody knew what it was. It was like I just felt like I was crazy, I mean, and like the way that I
Yeah.
describe, yeah, the way I describe a panic attack is if I were to put you, because I think it's really hard for people who've never had one. Some people
Mhm.
think they have, like, but that's an anxiety attack. Like, and you might be feeling your chest is heavy and you're overwhelmed and you're nervous and you're kind of shaking. But if you don't feel like you're going to die within a second, then that's probably not a panic attack. A panic attack
Okay.
is like if I put you on a train track, Brenda, and I say, here's the deal. You're going to stand there, Brenda, and this train is coming at you at 300 miles per hour, and you are not going to move. In fact, I've tied your feet to the train track. But
Okay.
I promise you that that train is going to stop 1 inch before it hits your nose.
Mm.
Okay. Do you know how you would feel, Brenda? Like
Right.
that's the most terror you've ever felt in your life.
Right.
But I would say, but Brenda, you're completely safe. You're not in any danger. The
Right.
train is going to stop. Okay.
Yeah.
So for people like me, there is no effing train. There
Yeah.
is no body holding a knife to my throat. So because my brain cannot attach a logical reason for why I feel the way I do, I feel like I'm crazy.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to pause you right here because there's so much.
We got to go there, girl.
There's so much and actually, so now I know. So everybody, before Kim and I came on to record this, I told her that I had something percolating in me and that I might actually air her episode before I had originally intended, to give what's percolating in me that I want to say to everybody a little more space to evolve. And this, like, is right in line with all of it, because part of what, I mean, it's different, but it's a similar theme, because part of what I want to talk about in the future as we head into the rest of January and, into this new year, is what, for me, I'm afraid over the last couple of years has come off as almost as if I've put on a mask. And so just the little bit I'll explain, without being my own headline stealer, is that the last couple years of my life, like three, but 2018 and 2019, 2020, at the beginning, have been the worst years of, I mean, like, hardest, okay? Like, absolute effing hardest years of my life. And I've been through some shit, okay? So, but people will, sometimes when whatever, I'll talk about that in my inner circle or, whatever. But people who just know me on Facebook, or maybe even through the Liberate Your Pleaser, People Pleaser Facebook group, or, even who listen to this podcast, they look at, my beach photos on, all my sunset photos and stuff on Facebook, and they think my life is so ideal. They don't see me as, a woman sitting in her car Googling homeless shelters. Okay. So then there becomes this question of, am I being fake? Was all that fake? And, or not? And so the question is a lot more complicated than, was it fake or was it not? And that's what I'll be talking about in, the coming months, because it wasn't fake. And yet, so for me, it was simultaneous. I was having some really fabulous experiences and the most horrific experiences of my life. Now, I'm not prone to high anxiety. And I loved your description of what a panic attack is, because I could never, I can't, like, relate to that in that I've never experienced it. So that was a really great way for you to describe that to me. But I think what we miss sometimes the part of the conversation that is missing from this whole, whether it's being a happiness coach or me liberating people from their people pleaser and all this sort of wellness conversation, we'll just call it, is that it doesn't mean there aren't really dark, horrific times. And nobody really talks about very much what the hell do you do when you're in that really dark time. Like one of my favorite examples of this is Eckhart Tolle. Okay. So like, I think he's an enlightened master in our time. Okay. So you read his book, The Power of Now, and in like literally only 2 or maybe it was 3 sentences in one paragraph was, oh yeah, I had no relationships and lived on a park bench for 2 years. And I'm
Yes.
like, and then he moves on, and I'm like, wait, can we roll that back and tell me how you got through every day living on a park bench?
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's really important to me in my work. And it's funny because a year or so ago, maybe it was more like 2 years ago, I did a program called From Darkness to Light.
Oh, yeah.
Because, they say all of us as coaches, right? Like we teach and we coach what we wanted for ourselves and couldn't find.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted, was a program that would have helped me know how to, so I figured it out and I got some coaching and, whatever. And so it's very much part of my passion with people. And now I'll turn it back to you, but to help to like not ignore the darkness that's there. And then, so then if we're not going to ignore it, how do we not get swallowed up by it? Right? Because I don't want anybody to get swallowed up by it. I didn't want to get swallowed up by it. And that's part of what was different in 2018, 2019, 2020 for me, was that I found a way to authentically find happiness, at least in moments, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That even though I was also experiencing the, most horrific time of my life.
Yeah. I think, when I think about this, when I tell this story to thousands of people, because, I get hired by the corporate world to come in and do these trainings and by education institutions. And it's not that all 2,000 people have panic disorder, but the bottom line
Right.
is all of us have adversity. All of us have
Yeah.
shit in our truck. All of us have things that we have tried to conquer that are a part of who we are. And so it's like,
Yeah.
for me, I literally had the bathroom moment when I was like 22, 23 years old. I'm laying on, the 4-screen bath mat rug, and I'm literally pleading to God to take my life, because I say, I don't have the courage to, but I'm telling you, every 5 minutes of every damn day is a struggle and I can't do it anymore. And
Yeah.
so, I got this invitation from God or the universe or spirit that said, Kim, get up off that, like, you're made for more. This story of yours is not done. And so the point of my story is that we can fall victim to the
Mhm.
bullshit stories that we've told ourselves our whole life, which are true,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe you were molested or mistreated or emotionally abused, or you had panic disorder, or whatever it is. But there comes a moment in a person's life where you say, damn it, I'm not going to play the victim anymore. I'm going to
Yeah.
take 100% responsibility for my life, and I'm going to stand in the mess of it. And then I'm going to make a step forward, and I'm going to decide that I'm going to be the warrior. And,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
even your story, Brenda, it's like, just be like, I worry about that too, because I think it's so easy to lose ourselves that we will always be somewhat putting fake parts of ourselves out there, because it's like our ego. We have an ego, and the ego does that, unfortunately. But, when you talk about your pictures, I remember
Right.
like just a few months ago, I have to admit, I'm like, damn, that rich bitch is sitting there on a swimming pool in California. I'm looking at your stuff, I'm like, that rich bitch, look at her. What the hell she got going on? My God, she must be
Yeah.
making all kinds of money. She's laying by this pool. We need to figure out what's going on with Miss Brenda, and you were laying by a pool,
Yeah.
and you were enjoying the sunset, Um,
Yeah.
but for me,
Yeah. It's so true. Because I can't afford to have my own apartment, so I'm in an Airbnb is what's underneath that, right?
right?
So but it's so funny. It's so funny how we can, and you're right, there always is some, there's for those of us who are prone, as many people pleasers are, to put on that happy face, right? And like to be positive and pull ourselves up by our
I don't
bootstraps
like that at
and
all.
all those things.
I don't like that
I,
part, you know? It's like toxic
I'm
positivity.
so over. Yes, yes. So one of my approaches to people pleasing is that all those things that, so everything about us that is kind of classically labeled as a people pleaser, those things I just mentioned and more, prioritizing other people above ourselves and all of that, those are really beautiful, like superpowers that just got distorted, right? They got,
Yes.
instead of making myself a priority, I'm making others a priority. Instead of finding the true joy, even amidst the misery, I'm faking joy,
Yeah.
and so it's all the same thing. It comes back to, we all have everything we need, right? We have
Yep.
all the talent, all the, fortitude, all the everything, but it gets distorted, it gets buried, or it gets outward projected into others, and then they have all the power. And so I love about what you just said there with taking responsibility, because I think there's such a huge difference between taking responsibility and saying it wasn't their fault. Like, I was sexually abused, okay? So that person did something very bad, and I'm not taking responsibility for what they did.
Mm-mm.
But I do have to come back to myself, because if all my focus is on him and the horrible thing he did to me, he has all the power and I'm a victim, and there's no
Yeah.
two ways around that. And every time we're a victim, even to our own story, we're lost.
That's right.
And so
That's
to
right.
be able to say, I was a victim, or I don't even always use that word now, I experienced
Mm-hmm.
sexual abuse, and everything else about what I do about that as a person who experienced that, like you with your panic attacks, now that's on me. Like, what he did to me, he did about 45 years ago for me. 55. I forgot how old I am. Uh, you know, and that's over. And I can either let that continue to define who I am in a way that hurts me, or I can say, okay, he did that and that was there, and now I'm here. And what the hell do I want to do about me being here? And as soon as we can get there, we have some power.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And even when I look back about my own story and going back to like what you were saying, back in 2018, I'm flying all across the country. I'm stepping onto these stages. I mean, let's get real. The girl who struggled to walk to her mailbox
Yeah,
becomes a nationally recognized motivational speaker. Thank you, God. It's like,
right.
that's a crazy ass story. But in the fall of 2018, Brenda, I had the biggest relapse of my panic disorder in 20 years.
Okay. Okay.
So I had launched Strobel Education, which is my education consulting business. Then I launched Kim Strobel, the happiness coach. I was working my ass off. I had joined a high-end business
Yeah,
mastermind program.
where we met. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
And so like for the first time, I'm creating my 90-day program for women who want to live bigger, bolder, braver lives. And at
Yeah.
the same time, I experienced the worst panic attack I've had in 20 years, which sent me all the way back to being afraid to be by myself, to not being able to drive my car without feeling nervous 5 minutes away. And I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. Like, I'm a woman who is big and bad and fierce. I step on stages. I fly across the country. And now I'm over here crying on my office floor because my husband's driving 5 minutes to get himself a Diet Mountain Dew. And I don't know if I'm going to survive while he's gone, because what if I have one of these attacks? What if I feel nervous? What if I lose my mind? And it was like, I was pissed, Brenda. I was like, I
Yeah.
have done
Yes.
the work.
Yes.
I have
Yes.
done the damn work.
Right.
And, so here's what happened. This time I wasn't in darkness for 10 years because I had a set of skills that I didn't have before.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
knew to go to
Yeah.
therapy right away. I
Yeah.
knew to order all the books and start doing all the work again on my head. I knew what to do. So I gradually came out of that, but it probably took me 6 months or a year to somewhat come out of that. I just had to keep forcing myself to do hard things. Like, you're going to get on the damn plane and you're going to fly to Texas. And if you have to take your Ativan to get you there, then you're going to do it.
Yeah.
But my learning in that, because once you get through an episode, I try to look back and be like, okay, so what was the purpose of that? Like, I knew that the purpose of my panic disorder all those years ago was because Kim Strobel would not be Kim Strobel, the happiness coach, had she not
Mhm.
gone through that.
Yes,
So I'm
absolutely.
like, okay, God, why are we doing this again? And as I reflected on that, Brenda, I thought, anybody who knows me or sees me on social media, they think like, my God, this is the most ambitious, overly driven, go, 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 produce, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. Like, she runs 40 miles a week and she runs 2 businesses and blah, 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 blah. And I looked back and I thought, Brenda, I have hated and despised the part of Kim Strobel that is weak, the part of Kim Strobel
Mm.
that has panic disorder. I hated and despised that part of myself. And therefore, in order to keep it in its place and to prove to my inner self that I am not that weak ass person who struggles to drive to Walmart or walk inside, I'm going to be this fierce, badass woman and I'm going to put little weak Kim in her place.
Oh, oh yeah.
Right?
So everybody just breathe that in, because I know everybody listening, including myself, has that part of themselves that they are their own enemy of.
Exactly. And so now my learning is, and I write this affirmation
Yeah.
every day, Brenda, because when I am the badass that steps on the stage, I'm walking up on the stage and I'm feeling the energy of the fierce, big Kim Strobel. But
Yes.
I also take with me the other part of Kim who deserves loving kindness, who
Yeah.
deserves to be seen, who deserves to have compassion and understanding. Because the bottom line is, I have a vulnerability. And I might have this vulnerability on and off for the rest of my life. I will continue to work on it. I'm hoping for a complete healing. But
Right.
my learning is that both parts of me are allowed to be part of who I am. One
Yeah.
is not worse than the other. And so
Yeah.
my affirmation every day now is, I am honoring the fierceness of who I am, while also loving and accepting my vulnerabilities.
Mm.
Like, that poor part of me that has those struggles, she deserves nothing but to be fully embraced in kindness and love by the part of me that can do that.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that so much. That, I think that that's really behind the perspective of the work that I'm doing as well, in that the whole reason I'll talk about the people pleasing qualities we have being superpowers that just got distorted is I don't want it to be something wrong about us, right? There's not something wrong with me because of these
Mm-mm.
people pleaser qualities. I don't need to fix the like, it's not, there's nothing broken. There's nothing broken. We have these really wounded, and for good reason, like things that have happened that have wounded a part of ourselves, whether you want to think of it as, like, a lot of times they happen in our childhood. So a lot of people feel it as, one of the questions I ask almost everybody I coach when we get to something that I can tell is really, big for them, it will be to ask them, when's the first time you felt this? And, you know, 99 out of 100 times, they were very small, 2,
Yes.
3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes I'll get somebody in grade school. I've never had anybody even as old as a teenager. So in the grand scheme of a life, in those first 10, 12 years of our lives, these things happened, and that little girl or little boy had no ability to process and, deal with those things in what we would consider today, like a healthy way, so to speak. And so these things come out of it, and they're always meant to, at the time, they were like coping mechanisms that were very benevolent, right? They were there to protect us. And then they got to the point where they didn't serve us anymore. And so that's when right? So when it's showing up in your adult life and you're like, wait a minute, I don't want to be cowering in the corner, waiting terrified for when my husband's going to come home because I don't know if I can make it alone. You're like, okay, this isn't serving me anymore.
Yes.
So now it's time that got distorted into something that's no longer working.
Yes.
So tell me, and I think the whole love thing, like I finally found, I don't know if you pick a word. Do you pick a word for the year?
I do.
What's your word?
My word this year is momentum.
Ooh,
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
So my word this last year was inwardness. And so I did a deep dive inward on who I am and what I want to experience, how I want to feel. And I gave myself a lot of grace this year. Because let's be honest, there weren't 100 stages for me to be on. So
Right.
I'm here doing my thing, and I just didn't resist it. I didn't go into all scarcity mindset. I surrendered to it and just went inward. So now I'm like ready to rebirth, like kind of rebirth myself and really gain a lot of momentum in my ability to influence others.
Yes, I love that. I think my word last year was expansion, which it was a very expanding year. But this year I couldn't come up with a word. Like, I think about it from time to time over the last couple months, and I could make up words, right? I love words. I like to write. I like to talk, obviously. I love words, but it all felt sort of just like, oh, that's a good word. I could pick that. It didn't feel like that deep resonating that I want my word to feel. And in the shower on New Year's Eve, it hit me. And my word, or two words, if you want to be picky about it, is self-love.
I love that.
And I know that, and so that is exactly what you're talking about. It's that ability to, I often say to clients, like, we have to love ourselves into life.
Yes, we do.
That whole idea of, I got to get rid of that part of me. I got to kill that. I got to cut that off. I got to fix that. I'm broken. And it doesn't help.
It doesn't.
It's short term. Like, it might pull you out of like, it's kind of like willpower to go to the gym, right? Like, it might get you through January, but it's not going to get you into March. Then it's done.
Right. And a friend of mine even uses a word now to describe self-love, because I call it self-love too, but I really like her term. She calls it self-loyalty.
Ooh.
Like being loyal to yourself. And she actually did, like, on my podcast, I was just looking, her name is Nancy Jane, I think it was Smith, and she did a podcast interview for me, and she really breaks down what is this idea of self-loyalty, which means you continue to choose yourself over and over and over and over. And I thought, isn't that an even like, to me, that something about that, right? Like self-loyalty.
Yes. So you interviewed her?
Yeah. I'm just looking it up. So my podcast, is called She Finds Joy, because you were on there.
Yeah.
And so, so I'm going to look it up right now, because I have interviewed so many people lately. And hers was a while ago, but I'll put,
of course,
it's Nancy Jane Smith. Yeah. Okay. Nancy Jane Smith, The Value of Self-Loyalty. So it's episode 34 on my podcast.
Okay.
It's really cool to hear her talk about what that word means.
Your podcast, of course, in the show notes.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's really good. That. So I could talk to you forever. But as we wrap up this interview, give us maybe there's one thing or one or two things that are those practical, like bringing this back to the practical. Okay. Because even the idea of loving myself into, where I want to be is a little elusive sounding. Like, great, when I'm loathing myself, it's a little hard to just go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to love myself into life. Brenda said that, right?
Right,
Even
right.
if you're Brenda, that's a little hard to do. So what are some, what's one or two kind of go-to practical things that you would encourage listeners to try, experiment with? Because we all know everything doesn't work for everybody. We have to find
Yeah.
things that kind of work for us, but that would help them find their way back from that terrified person
Yeah.
to the more powerful person inside of
I'm
them.
thinking about this because, I love the happiness research, which tells us,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
do you want me
I'm
to tell you
glad you
that real
brought that
quick
up.
too?
Yeah. Do I meant to ask you that? I kind of
Yeah.
seeded everybody for it at the beginning. So
I know we
thank
did,
you for
right?
that
Okay.
one.
So
We
like
did it.
yeah, I'll start with the happiness
Yeah.
research and then I'll end with it one tip that they can use. So,
Okay.
um, and just like for your audience members who are listening, just to know, like, you are not alone. I'm a happiness coach and I struggle at times. Brenda, you
Yeah.
just explained that you struggle. And so we're not gurus. We don't have this shit all figured out. And the reason we can teach others is because we're willing to go there. And I always tell people, like, I'm a happiness practitioner. I have happiness habits that are a daily part of my life,
Yeah.
But the happiness research says that we all have what's called a set baseline happiness level. So
Okay.
maybe my set baseline happiness level is here, and maybe Brenda, your set baseline happiness is a little bit higher and it's here. So that means that Brenda and I are going to go out shopping and we're going to get a Kate Spade purse, and our happiness level is going to go up for just a period of time. And
Yep.
then it's going to go right back to whatever the
Yeah.
baseline is. We're going to get a new house and it's going to go up. We're going to get a new job and it's going to go up. We're going to get a new car and it's going to go up for a very short period of time. And it always goes back to baseline.
Yes.
All right. Now, what we know also is the same is true for the really hard things that we deal with in our life. So a person can endure, believe it or not, really difficult things like loss or illness or cancer or divorce. All of these like really hard things. But what we know from the brain research is that almost all of us will reset back to our happiness baseline eventually, like within a fairly short period of time, 2 to 5 years. They even did studies, believe it or not, on quadriplegics and found out that 90% of quadriplegics return to their happiness levels that they were before the accident within about 4 to 5 years, which is really hard for you and I to wrap our head around. But
Right.
let's be honest, Brenda, people who have endured trauma and terrible loss. I know people who have endured the hardest of hard things. And I can honestly say that many of them go on and live this
Yeah.
very joy-filled life,
Yes. Very true.
So some people that are listening are like, all right, Kim, so where's my baseline? How do I figure this out? So I want you to think of your happiness as a pie chart, which means that 50% of your long-term happiness is genetic. It comes from your mom, your dad, or a mixture of both. And sometimes when I tell people this, they hang their head and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm so screwed.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like,
that's what I was thinking. So
yeah. But it's true. Like, how some of us are born into this world and we can look at a French fry and put 15 pounds on, and the other side of
yes.
the other person can eat French fries every day. It's the same thing. Some of us are just born with a happier disposition. We go through life, we see the positive more than we do the negative. And then there's others of us who have to work at it. So 50% is genetic, but don't let that deter you. Hang with me here for just a minute.
Okay.
All right. Shockingly, only 10% of your long-term happiness, and I really want your audience to hear me on this, only 10% of your long-term happiness comes from your external circumstances.
Yeah. Yes. Oh,
what do we mean by that?
so that's why.
Yeah, we're all chasing the wrong damn things. Okay. Your external circumstance is your money. How much money do you make? Now, we do know that people who fall below, I think it's $50,000 a year, we do know their happiness will be impeded because of their stress levels and all of that. But, if you make 75,000 or 7 million, believe it or not, there's not a big difference in your happiness level.
Yes.
right? What
Yes.
kind of car you drive, what kind of home you live in, if you're married, single, divorced, or widowed, if you need to lose 20 pounds or you don't need to lose any weight. Believe it or not, that's an external circumstance, because what happens to the woman who says she needs to learn, if I could just lose these 20 pounds, I'd be happy. Well, you lose your 20 pounds and you're still not happy, because now you've told yourself it needs to be 30 pounds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's only 10%, which means that all of us, me included, Brenda, we're chasing the wrong damn things.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is so true. That's the short answer to why my life could seem incongruent over the last couple of years, because I figured that out. Like, I didn't know that research. So that's very interesting. But I was just like, I'm not going to let my circumstances dictate how I feel.
No,
But
so
we're
take that
not
back.
trained to do that. Like, that is not, we're trained to believe our circumstances are 90% of the pie.
Absolutely. And this is what I say for like the woman who goes through my coaching program, who's been divorced for 5 years and her husband left her and she's still in the gutter. I'm
Yeah.
like, we all have a right to grieve and we all have that
Yeah.
own timeline. But like, seriously, if you're in the gutter 5 years later, I'm sorry, sister, it's time to take control of your life.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So what's the other 40?
yeah, that leaves 40%, right? And the 40%
Yeah.
is the part that gets me the most excited, because this is what I've studied for the last 15 years, which is every human being, regardless of their genetics, regardless of their external circumstances, we all have the ability to increase our happiness levels by up to 40%, Brenda. And
Yeah.
when we do that, it actually changes every single successful outcome we experience.
Yeah.
Because when you put your happiness levels first, that's actually when you start to make more money, when you start to see more
Yeah.
opportunities, when you start to attract the wonderful soulmate, when all of those things happen, but only after you put your happiness and well-being at the forefront.
Yes.
So
yes.
now
Yes.
your listeners are like, oh my God, Kim, tell me what to do. Well, I can't tell you all of them, but I'm going to tell you one, right?
Yes. Lay it on
So
us.
one of the top 5 ways, and I'm like rushing here because I'm looking at the clock and I know I have another interview in a few minutes, but this is how I do life.
Yeah.
So one of the top 5 ways to increase your happiness level is a simple 2-minute practice that all of you have heard of, but most of us aren't doing because we don't know how valuable it is. And that practice is the practice of gratitude.
Yeah.
The average human being has 70,000 thoughts a day. The average human being, 80% of the 70,000 thoughts that you're having are negative, which means if you're an average human being, which most of us are, we're having 56,000 negative thoughts a day about ourselves.
Yes.
How we look, what we do, our life, all of these things. So what we know is that if you were to write down, and you do need to write it down.
Yeah.
So I go to TJ Maxx, I get a cute little quote journal with a beautiful quote on the front, lined pages. I put the date every day, January 4th, 2021. I write the words, I am thankful, ... If you write 3 different things every day for the next 21 days that you are thankful for, what we know is you rewire your brain, Brenda.
Yes.
You rewire the neural feedback loop, which means you train your brain to start picking out the good versus all of the bad. You're still going to have some of the bad because we're human beings.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
But it's like, it is the number one practice that my clients consistently report is a game changer in their life. And I think I sent you that free gift, Brenda. We actually have a gratitude tracker for your listeners.
Yes.
And so it's like a prompt, and it shows them exactly how to do it. And it gives them prompts, and it gives them 21-day slots where they can actually start their 21-day practice. But I would also encourage your listeners, since we're talking about self-love and self-loyalty, I'm going to challenge your listeners. And I'm going to say one of those damn 3 things that you're thankful for needs to be something that you love about yourself.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that. I had a client a few weeks ago that was just in really the pit of despair. And I told her to make a list of 100 things because I needed to dramatically shift her state. Right. And so I said 100 things, and a whole bunch of them have to be qualities about you that you like and that you're grateful for.
You
And
got to.
she got in touch with me the next day because 100 like made her really, it gave her mind something to go do, right? Our minds need to go do something. And so we can give it the
Yes.
great assignment of these 3 gratitudes a day and change that whole neural network. Or we can let it do what it's prone to do, which is find the things that are wrong
Yeah.
and all the proof of why that means we're, broken, a loser, whatever thing.
Yeah.
So I love this. And yes, guys, everybody will have the link to this free gift in the show notes. So final words. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for all your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And give us just a final farewell of so this episode will air mid-January of 2021. If anybody's, for those of you who are listening to it kind of in real time. So as we kick off a new year after a pretty strange one, what would you like to leave everybody with?
I'm going to do 2 things. One
Okay.
is you are not selfish for putting yourself first.
Amen, sister.
And
Yeah.
the second is know your value, sister.
Mm,
All of us have value, regardless of our past mistakes, regardless of the things that didn't turn out the way that we wanted them to. We are human beings who have value, and you have a right to see your own value, and you have a right to claim that.
yes. Ugh, that's so good. No better note to leave on than that. Thank you, my dear.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Liberate Your People Pleaser. And I want to take just a minute to share a little more about my special package I have going now to be seen and heard in your relationship. This is a limited time offer at the price I'm offering it. There's the entry level 3-session package. But for those of you who just know you're going to need a little more, or you're wondering if you might, I've got this VIP package. This is a full 90 days with 9 one-on-one coaching sessions plus 90 days of Voxer support. So Voxer is like a app that just makes it very easy for us to voice communicate. You don't have to type everything. We can just record messages to each other so that you'll have the support you need, because I know that 2020 has been hard on a lot of our romantic relationships. And so I wanted to kick the new year off with something that's going to really serve you. And beyond romance, it's going to help you in your work relationships and everything else, because once we sort of figure out this dynamic of being seen and heard and not feeling invisible anymore and not dismissing ourselves or letting others dismiss us, then everything in life changes. So check out the information and sales page. So the link is in the show notes, and you can book your appointment if you think the VIP package might be right for you. Or if you just know you want that 3-session package and start there, you can pay for that online. As soon as you finish your payment, you'll get an email from me to book your first session. For those of you who book your call to decide if VIP is right for you, then you'll get an email with the link to schedule that call. So actually, no, you're going to schedule the call right from the sales page. It'll take you right to the scheduler, and then we'll figure out what to do on our call together. So I can't wait to hear from you on that. And as always, the show notes will also include a link to join my private Facebook group, Liberate Your People Pleaser, if you haven't done that yet, and a link to ask me a question that you would like to have addressed on Liberate Your People Pleaser. All right, everybody. Love you.